Hello everybody, today I will be scaling MV Godzilla and see how far he goes when it comes to scaling. And I know you have heard this before, but just stay with me real quick. It's gonna be a very in-depth video and all that stuff, so we will be going through from what we know about him from the past and until we get to GXK. So let's talk about how strong Godzilla is. Okay, so first off, let's get one thing out of the way. Godzilla and Ghidorah are relative to each other. Ghidorah's not stronger, Godzilla isn't stronger, they are relative. This is consistent because both a weakened Godzilla and a weakened Ghidorah shown relativity to each other, with none of them being superior between the other. This is consistent within the films and within the cave paintings that we saw. And there's also the fact that Godzilla's greatest rival is in fact Ghidorah. And yeah, that is literally a title only given to people that are on the same ground. Because if you're not on the same ground, then you wouldn't be considered a rival. You would be just superior to this other person. But anyways, back to it. From what we know from the past, Godzilla and Ghidorah fight each other pretty consistently. Again, their battle, they had fight each other several times. So many times. And this could be argued to be going on for millions of years. But this is our first event with Godzilla. So anyways, this would mean that Godzilla has already shown to be on the same level as Ghidorah, which means he should scale to his superstorms already. He should scale to him tanking the oxygen destroyer. The only reason why the oxygen destroyer was killing him is because it made him lose oxygen, not the fact that it hurt him. So yeah, he should get into the, moon to Dwarf star level ranges, even in the past. But anyways, let's get into other stuff. So then, after that, Godzilla fights Shimo. Now, the time frame of when this happened is kind of off, but we could say that it happens after Ghidorah, since Shimo froze Ghidorah, and Godzilla fights Shimo, and eventually sealed her away. It's a lot of stuff. But anyways, Godzilla gets beaten up, and is literally not a match for Shimo, with him being able to defeat her, thanks to him sealing her away. So yeah, Godzilla is weaker than Shimo, Ghidorah is relative to Godzilla, and Godzilla is relative to Ghidorah. That would mean that they're both below Shimo, so yeah, none of them should scale to Shimo, at least not yet. But anyways, yeah, what they got from this is basically just some multi-continental stuff, because Shimo can freeze the entire Earth in her last ice age. So yeah, and since she is stronger than Goji and Ghidorah, that would mean she should also get into the Dwarf star level ranges as well. So yeah, that's very good. After this, Godzilla fights in the Muto War against things such as Mutos and Muto Primes. So yeah, now the Mutos are very weak, but the Primes are pretty strong, being able to destroy the dorsal plates. The dorsal plates are pretty underrated because they are very capable of storing high amounts of energy, specifically Godzilla's atomic breath, which is very, very, very powerful. being able to be comparable to the Hollow Earth. Not superior, just comparable. And even at this point, I don't even know if he was, like, at his top level, if he is connected to being, the same level as the Hollow Earth, but that's something to chew on. So yeah, that's good. After this, the Kongs started to go on the Earth, and they started to hunt a lot of things, including Godzilla's own species, the Ghidorah, and they even skinned them and even used their dorsal plates. Now, this angers Godzilla, because not only that they are killing Gojirahs, but they are also enslaving them as well. How can these apes take over his entire species? So he needs to kill them, but he can't kill all of them because, he is just one guy, and he can't kill all of them at once. At least, not without help. Now, this is going into heavy speculation, but it fits pretty well. So, after he now knows that the Kongs are a big threat, he decides to go get some help. Specifically, Mothra. Now, Mothras are very unique, because they are somewhat comparable to them when it comes to power, and they can give them special abilities, increasing their strength and power and giving them control over the radiation they have within them. So, yeah, he then goes to Mothra and then convinces her to fuse her life force within him. So then he will become the monster who ate a star. So then he goes to where all of the Kongs are, and then just goes and uses power to kill them, but also killing a bit of his own species as well. This literally made him look like a monster, but to him, he's doing a right thing. But after this, he was dethroned by the Gojirahs, and then Dagon became his replacement. So, yeah, he was kind of like a nobody at that point. But no matter, he is still the guardian of nature. And he consistently fights a bunch of other creatures, such as the Shinamura. But there was one thing that made him angry, and that's the fact that a Kong was in his lair, and he beats him up until he leaves half dead. But anyways, he doesn't care about that at this point. So then he decides to still go after the Shinamura. But then, boom, a meteor struck and it created a giant explosion. But the Shinamura was gone, so he decides to go to sleep. And then after that, yeah, he basically woke up to a totally new world. Like, Dagon died, and the Mutos were running around, so we exterminated them. I'll take you in mind, he was very weak in this state of power, and yet he could still take down a bunch of creatures that were actively nerfing him during the battle. And he still won and survived. So yeah, this guy is getting more and more impressive to the day. After this, he then goes around the world and then fights the Muto Prime. And it destroyed its dorsal plates before he could do anything else. And then he killed it by putting it on his back and then releasing a bunch of energy. And then once it fallen back down, he stomped on its head. Which means that he's easily above the Muto Prime now. Which means he's easily above the Dwarf Star level ranges of power. But he was probably still weakened by this, because again, Muto's weakened Gojira. And then he got in some new dorsal plates, and then Ghidorah woke up. And then he decides to go there to stop him, And again, they showed relativity to each other, both in weakened states. And he was gonna win that fight in the water. And then the Oxygen Destroyer came, and you know the rest. And after this, he then gotten a nuke which amped him up and even created a hole through the hollow earth. Something that only his atomic breath can do. Which means this nuke is easily in the dwarf star level ranges of power, if not higher. And he has been stated to gotten an overcharge from this, and he was beating Ghidorah in that fight, but they were still somewhat relative, so I'll only give this a 2 times multiplier. And then Ghidorah got in his own amp that was gonna one-shot this version of Godzilla, so he should be 20 times above this base weakened Godzilla. So yeah, he is very strong. And he even overpowered and even took some of the energy from Godzilla. And then Mothra sacrificed herself and then make Goji into burning Godzilla, a very powerful form of Godzilla in 2019. And this was one of his most dangerous forms. Now, since he's above Ghidorah and he's able to 3-shot him, that would mean that he is 3 times more powerful than this amped Ghidorah, which means that 60 times above base, which means that this Godzilla is very powerful. So yeah, we are reaching from the dwarf star to even small star to even solar system level ranging. But we'll talk about the solar system stuff later. And then, after this, he became very weakened. It's described as him being starving and being in his base from the original days where he lost to the rival. But this is still very powerful, being able to take down Tiamat and all that stuff. So yeah, this Godzilla is pretty tough, even for a weakened Godzilla. And then we get to GVK, where Godzilla is probably at his strongest. And no, he's not weakened during the film, he's only weakened during the final fight between Mechagodzilla. So anyways, how strong is this version of Godzilla? Well, first off, I had lied about something. Godzilla isn't dwarf star level. He is solar system, because the hollow earth is literally just, filled with these vortexes that are black hole-like. So yeah, multi-solar system is pretty consistent for the planet itself. Godzilla can drill through this planet. He should be at least somewhat relative to his nuclear amp form. So, which means that Ghidorah should also scale the solar system level. And yeah, Godzilla is actually just solar system level. And this is consistent because, like I said, he can drill through the hollow earth, which should be like a large star to solar system level feat, if not higher. And now we get to GXK, which is probably one of Godzilla's best scaling. Okay, so he is 10 times above his base, which, again, like I said, should be relative to his nuclear amp form. So power plant Godzilla should be superior to that. And it has been stated in the novel several times that it is somewhat comparable to Burning Godzilla. And to me, this is also pretty consistent because I am speculating that the picture that we saw showing the monster who ate a star is Godzilla, but in a thermonuclear form, which I think is also Power Plant Godzilla. Now, how strong is Power Plant Godzilla? Well, it's most likely that he is 10 times above his base, because Supercharged Godzilla, or Godzilla Evolve, is 20 times above his base. So yeah, Power Plant Godzilla would be like 10 times above his base. So yeah, that is pretty good, pretty nice. He can do a lot of stuff. And finally, we get Supercharged Evolved Godzilla / Evolved Godzilla. So how strong is this variant of Godzilla? Well, he's above the power plant by 2 times. And my reasoning isn't because of the simple Chinese statement, because I actually translated that, and it doesn't say anything about it doubling. It only says that his power increased massively. The reason why is because his energy charts from Supercharged and his energy charts from his power plant form are twice as big. So yeah, that is my reasoning. And he is just blatantly above Ghidorah because he's relative to Shimo. So yeah, that's his full scaling. So I will put it on the screen on his full scaling so you will understand. So yeah, that's it everybody. Bye.